the person I met with was Kim Gaiguan. He was our lead negotiator.
How many times did you go to North Korea?
I went there 3 times. 3 times. And to Pyongyang. I went there once to Panmunjom to bring back the remains, and I went to Pyongyang. And I said, well, what do you want? They said, we want the respect of the U.S. We don't know how to get the respect of the U.S. I said, well, one of the things you got to do is you've got to stop terrorism and you've got to stop your nuclear program. They said, well, we're not really interested in pursuing a nuclear program. This is back in 2003 and 4. So I said, well, what if we came up with a plan that maybe would allow you to have an alternative source of energy? And they said, we'd be interested in that. So with my delegation, again, 3 Democrats, I can name them, and they'll come on your show, and 2 other Republicans. On the back of an envelope, on my first or second trip there, I wrote down 6 or 7 items. It became a 2-part plan to create what I called the Peace Pipeline.
Is this it?
The Peace Pipeline? Yeah, that's it. That's the meeting. That's the meeting. So I said, and I met separately with Kim Gaiguan privately. With the members, they were off. I said, I want to meet with you privately. Let me run something by you because I have to get this approved by Secretary Powell and by the White House. I said, the 6 party nations, China, Russia, South Korea, North Korea, the U.S., what if they all came together and offered you some other way for energy? Let's say the Russian has energy up in the Far East, up around Kamchatka, oil and gas. What if we built pipelines from the Russian Far East that came down from Kamchatka through China, down the rail corridor of North Korea to South Korea? And what if KoGas in South Korea offered to buy that product and sell it to China, to Japan, and the other countries? And China built the pipeline. Would you then be willing to give up your nuclear program? And the North Koreans said, yes. So I wrote up a 2-part, 10-point peace plan. Colin Powell had me speak at the monthly Secretary of State forum that he sponsored as a secretary in front of 200 State Department employees. And he put it on his website. The peace plan was approved by all other 4 nations, 5 nations. I went to Wuhan, China. Wuhan, China, besides being the health problem, their largest manufacturer of pipe is in Wuhan. They had 500,000 employees there. I went to Wuhan and spent a week. I met with the leadership of the pipe company and the party in Wuhan. I said, can you get the party leadership to approve you building pipe for a pipeline system from the Russian Far East down through China and North Korea to South Korea? They said, we'd love it. And yes, our country will support that. I went to KoGas. I'm very tight with the South Koreans. The former defense minister, is a good friend of mine. And I traveled with him to Kazakhstan. He knows me very well. And the president was also a good friend. They held a dinner for me when I left Congress. I said, will KoGas buy the product? We'll buy it for ourselves, and we'll sell what we don't need to China, to Japan? Yes, Congressman. It's a great idea. The Russians, I said, you want to sell the product up there? Absolutely, Congressman. We'll sell all the oil and gas. All the countries supported it. And the plan was that we would not complete and open the pipelines until North Korea shut down the Yongbun reactor. That's their main reactor. Shut it down and allowed for a transparent multinational review of that site to verify that the nuclear program was totally shut down. And then I told them, once that's done and once it's verified, then the product will flow through the pipelines and you'll get a tipping fee. For every barrel of product going through the pipeline, you'll get income for your country. And you'll get to use some of the product for energy for your nation, so you won't need nuclear power. The North Koreans wanted to do it. The White House didn't want it. I'll tell you how severe it was and how childish it was. You know, we have an annual prayer breakfast in Washington every year, and I used to go to every one of them. The president speaks. So I was at the time working both Libya and North Korea, had been to both countries. So the Libyan ambassador in Washington was a man named Ojali. I said, Ambassador Ojali, will you come sit at the prayer breakfast with my delegation in front of the president to show that Libya is serious about peace with America? He said, absolutely, Congressman. A month before the prayer breakfast, I get a call from the 2 embassy officials. North Korea had no embassy here. They had a consular office up at the UN. Ambassador Han and Ambassador Park. Ambassador Han called me. He said, Chairman Weldon, you have some kind of a prayer event in Washington once a year. I said, yes, Ambassador. It's the prayer breakfast. He said, Ambassador Park and I would like to come and bring our spouses. I said, you want to come to the prayer breakfast? He said, yes. I said, well, you know, you can't have a press conference there. It's a prayer breakfast. We pray. He said, no, Congressman. We just want to come and show our presence. Well, I said, absolutely, you'll be my guest. I organized the table. It was going to be the ambassador from Libya and his wife, Ambassador Han and his wife, Ambassador Park and his wife, right in the front and the center of the national prayer breakfast. about 2 weeks before the prayer breakfast, I got a call from Ambassador Hahn. He was very upset. He said, Congressman Weldon, we have to turn down your offer. I said, well, why would you do this to me? You asked me to get the invitation. I get it. I get the table. He said, Congressman, you don't understand. We're not an embassy. For us to travel outside of New York, out of 50 miles, we have to get State Department approval. We applied for the permit, and your State Department turned us down. I hung up the phone, and I called the State Department. And the Congressional Affairs guy, whose name I have in my records, and he'll say this, he'll verify it, before I could even say anything, he said, Mr. Chairman, I know why you're calling, and Chairman Powell supports you. We were called by the White House and told to deny the approval for the 2 embassy leaders from North Korea to come with a prayer breakfast.
What was their fear?
Condoleezza Rice. She didn't want them in the room with the she didn't want to show that North Korea wanted a peaceful coexistence with America. I'll take a polygraph.
I get it, but what you're saying is that these neocons, they want war.
They want conflict.
Why though? Is it pure profit or is it just constant conflict?
It's Marxism. It's Trotsky. If you look back at their roots, it goes back to Irvin. What's his name? Oh my goodness, I'm having a senior moment.
Senior moment who does 20 pull-ups, by the way.
Well, that's how I get past senior moments. Oh my God! Because anyway, it's a form. The neocons.
Irving Zeitlin?
No. Irving. His son is a big neocon now. He's one of the Crystal. Irving Crystal.
Okay.
Bill Irving Crystal. Bill's dad created the neocon movement out of essentially a Trotskyite concept of using a combination. Yeah, there you go. It's a combination of collectivism, concepts of collectivism, and chaos. That's why Stalin had Trotsky killed, because Stalin did not like the idea that some guy was running around there using essentially communism as a method of insinuating chaos. The chaos, they believe, philosophically, will allow for them to gain control. The chaos, they believe, gives them some level of global control. That goes back to Stalin.
That makes sense to me. We got a few minutes here. I want to go through a couple things before we wrap up. Okay. Judy Wood. How much do you know about Judy Wood?